For sure.
Jen, did you say Mike's on his way up? Or?
Yeah, I don't know why yeah, he's on his way. Oh, he's not here.
Yeah, I think so. This time I will call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone here this evening. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item then would be to consider the approval of the minutes of the last regular council meeting as well as the minutes of the local board of review. Both of those meetings were held on May 7th. The council has printed copies of the minutes. Are there any corrections to note at this time?
The approval of the minutes. Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 2 is a public hearing on a petition for a vacation of a utility easement in the Waccamaw addition. I'll call on Glenn Olson to conduct the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A little bit of a misnomer for the Waccamaw addition. This vacation won't be on a portion of the Waccamaw addition, but it is on the plat of the J.C. Boyer addition. It currently exists. So, Trunk Highway 23 is located to the northwest side of this. This is Susan Drive now and Baseline Road coming up in this area. This entire area, including another parcel of land north of this, is being subdivided into the new Waccamaw addition. And in that process, we found that there is an existing utility easement on the north, adjacent to the north line of Outlot A of the J.C. Boyer addition, which is proposed to be vacated. We have contacted the utility companies. There is no other existing utility located on that existing easement, and we would recommend that the easement be vacated.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Does the council have any questions for Glenn? Anyone in the audience have any input as part of the public hearing?
I thought one of the emails from the utilities had a,
It had a comment that making sure that the utilities that they had requested be placed on the Waccamaw addition, which they are. That was the one from MMU, just ensuring that what they're doing is this whole addition is being added, and they want easements around the entire subdivision, which is the case.
Any other questions or input? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
so moved. Second.
Motion by Charlie, seconded by Dan. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We'll now consider the resolution granting the petition for the vacation of the utility easement. The council does have that printed resolution. Are there any questions about the resolution? If not, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Charlie, seconded by Dan. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 3 is award of bids on a tractor loader backhoe for the street department. Bids were advertised, bids were received, and I'll turn to Glenn Olson for the recommendation.
Yes, we had 3 bids that were received, both for an outright purchase and for a trade-in. We also had a bid for if somebody wanted to buy our unit outright. No bids were received for the outright bid, and we received 3 valid bids for the unit as a trade-in.
We've had some discussion as to the recommendation that we have in front of you tonight, specifically of whether or not we believe that that it's the right recommendation. And we had a considerable discussion with that recommendation with the street department as well, and I'll just give you just a summary of that discussion. The discussion was, it is the low responsible bidder. It's about $8,000 plus less than the next low bidder. And would it be something that the street department would recommend approving? And there's some discussion as, yes, the recommendation comes forward as the low responsible bidder meeting all minimum specifications for the bid. We had an alternative. The alternative was to accept the state bid. The state bid is a valid bid. It's a public bid. But the bid that we had also in front of us was the state bid for that unit, which was, that $8,000 more. So our recommendation still in front of you tonight is for the award for the apparent low bidder in the amount of $36,423. If you have any questions, the street superintendent is here as well.
Can you explain, just clarify the state bid option?
The state bid option, all governmental subdivisions are eligible for acquiring or purchasing through the state bid process. And the state bid process has a variety of types of equipment, vehicles. As you're aware, we probably have utilized that bid process in the past. So that is available as a public bid for all entities that wish to participate. There is a fee for participating in that bidding system. And generally, both MMU and the city have participated in that in the past. So that it is available for political subdivisions to participate in.
Bob, if I could qualify or maybe try to answer some of those questions, is that is an option that we can look at. We typically, even though that's a purchasing option, we typically will bid out what we're doing, because in a number of instances, we've been able to procure supplies, equipment, or vehicles at prices less than the state bid amount. And we're also not in a position that bidder that ultimately receives the state bid amount under the competitive system that they have may or may not be somebody from the local area, so we don't get to pick and choose that in this case, the state bid holder for that piece of equipment or that supply is outside of the city limits versus in the city limits, and so that's why we typically would bid it, so that we have the benefit of ensuring that local people have the right to bid on that product.
Rich, did you have a comment to make, or do you want?
I guess I can answer any questions you ask them.
Okay. Well, I'll open up then for questions. Mike?
Yes, so let's just suppose for a moment that when we go out and bid it like we did here, if those came in higher than the state bid, could we accept the state bid even though it's not we didn't advertise it per se?
Mm-hmm.
We can do that.
Yes.
Okay, second question, and I guess this is going back several years to when I always ask that we show existing trade-in that we can sell it outright, just so we can make sure on the price. Who are we advertising that to? We have not had any. I know at one point several years ago, I think it was the city of Cottonwood again that bought the street sweeper, Cottonwood. But I don't believe we've had any small community bid on anything since that time. Who are we letting know about this?
We have two things that we do. We publish it in the paper, of course, and then generally we'll contact the normal, what we call the normal equipment suppliers for that type of unit, the ones who have expressed interest. And in this case, I think most of the suppliers actually supplied a machine for our department to try out. In this case, there was also a discussion. Let me go on just a little bit about that. There was also a discussion of the quality of the machine that was supplied by the apparent low bidder. And apparently there was a problem with that machine and that the hydraulic pump wasn't operational and didn't provide a very good example, I'll say, of the capabilities of the machine. We would certainly hope that a new unit, there was a used unit, would provide that necessary operation. So there was a comment about the ability of that machine to work properly. But in the case where we advertise, we typically do it in the paper and then contact the suppliers. Sometimes if they've got an indication that so-and-so is looking for one, they even tell us that. If a company or a city or someone is looking for a used one, to let them know.
Well, I guess I would like to see, the newspaper, I don't know how many people read the legal notice and so, for a 41-cent stamp, that we at least let the other communities in Lyon County get a copy of that, if they are interested, so that they can contact us. Like I say, I think the last item was that street sweeper.
Yeah, we trade, we actually sold a snow blower to the city of Glenwood, Minnesota.
Okay.
That's a couple of times this happened.
The second another question, did these and I'm not aware, I'm just asking the question, did these specs go through or to our committee of the council that has looked at lawnmowers? What was looked at before?
It was
Skid loaders
Yeah.
and was that done this time? No.
The loader backhoe was, the skid loader was?
I can't recall if we talked about the skid, the backhoe much, but I know we talked about the skid loader quite a bit.
Yeah, we never talked about tobacco.
Okay.
It wasn't brought up at any of the meetings we were at.
Okay. So Glenn, going back to your question, the demo unit, the hydraulics weren't working correctly?
Is that correct, Rich?
Yes, it was, they brought a demo unit over for us to use, and it was a lease return from another city. And we got in it and tried it, and it didn't have very much hydraulic power, so we followed them up. Sent a mechanic over, got up in there with us, and the mechanic showed what it wasn't doing, or what it should do. So they took it back over there and called the factory rep up, and they discovered there was a faulty hydraulic pump on it. That's what's causing all the weak hydraulic pressure.
So what assurance do you have that?
We have a 1-year warranty on everything, and if there's a warranty problem, they come pick it up, and they deliver it, and if it's anything more than 2 calendar days, that they furnish us a unit to use in the meantime.
Okay.
Other questions?
Bob, maybe a clarification on how we typically bid, that under the statutory requirements, anything over 50,000 is required to be publicly bid and advertised. The range of 10,000 to 50,000 is, we can do it either by sealed bids or by obtaining quotations. We typically, in that range, have had very good luck with typically just doing, sealed bids, just to avoid any issues and debate. And so if we believe it's going to exceed 50, even though it may not, we still try to, as you can see in these bid prices, that depending on the amount of the trade-in, it was going to exceed $50,000, which is why we publicly bid those larger pieces of equipment.
Glenn, do you know if this New Holland price is the state bid price?
Rich?
I don't know that.
No. We do know that the second low bidder is the state bid price.
The challenge that we have in that process where we might like to make that choice is that the next time on a piece of equipment or a vehicle, that state bid price could be with a vendor out of the city limits. And so that's why we don't just uniquely just pick that and say that that is our only choice in the process. It's one of the available choices that you have to you. And under the purchasing policy that you've adopted, we're required to bid it and to recommend to you the lowest responsible bid.
Other questions? Is there any other questions?
I have a question. I guess, when you said that that had faulty hydraulic pump, did they bring another unit over for you to test then later?
No, they didn't.
So you haven't operated one of their new machines?
No. We currently have the same, it's a Holland backhoe right now. So the last two that we've had have been that model, so, and we've had good luck with it.
I think the hesitancy, of course, everyone has, is because of the distance and servicing, as well as the desire to, keep business local. But do you have any comments you want to make about the servicing? Because any complications with distance? I know you had mentioned, that there is they'll get you a replacement machine if it's going to be longer than 2 days.
They take the trucking from here to their shop and back to, so.
And that's in the
During
first,
warranty period.
in the 1 year period.
That's correct.
And your current machine was purchased 6 years ago?
8.
8 years ago, okay. And given that it's the same model, have you had, beyond year one, have you had issues with it?
No, not really. Like I said, we've had fairly good luck with it. Anything breaks after the warranty thing, we usually do it in-house. All we have to do is call them up, order parts, and they're usually there on next day.
Okay, any other questions? If there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion. Is there a motion? If there isn't a motion, there should be a motion to table it, or if there's additional questions. One more time, I'll ask, is there a motion?
Maybe just a comment. I would hope that we'd at least have a motion to deny all bids, because we do want to respond to the people who did bid. So if there wouldn't be a motion to the affirmative, I think we should have at least a motion to proceed. Dennis, any comment?
Okay. If you don't award the low responsible bid or some other motion, then you've got to reject all bids. We need some direction somehow from the council.
Okay.
So either a motion to award, a motion to reject all bids, or a motion to table if there's additional information that's necessary.
I believe that in order to reject bids, there has to be a reason.
No.
No?
If you award other than the low responsible bid, then we need specific justifiable reasons. But you have the right by statute and by the advertising, you have the right to reject any and all bids. So if you're not going to award, then you should reject them all, or, as the mayor indicated, table for additional information.
I'll make a motion, we reject all bids and purchase the, stop right there.
Okay, motion by Dan to reject all bids. Is there a second to that motion?
Second it.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Charlie. Discussion.
I think maybe our committee should get together and talk maybe about state bids. There's no hurry on this, right?
No. I think your
We're in the busy season now.
yeah,
Yeah.
your current one's working.
Yeah, we got to do a little repair on it, that's.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, Call for a vote on the motion, all,
What is the motion to,
reject all bids.
Reject all bids.
okay.
Any other, just clarification on that motion? Everyone understands that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Call for a show of hands. All those in favor of the motion to reject all bids, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Jane, the motion passes.
And we'll convene, we'll get the committee together?
The subcommittee working on that.
So that gives you, Glenn, the authorization to return all bid security.
Correct.
Notify everybody.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4 is award of bids for a pickup truck for the Public Safety Department. Rob?
Yes, we're looking to replace our Jeep that the community service officer drives. And it was in the budget, and we have bid locally to our local dealers, and we got 3 bids for the type of vehicle that we were looking for. Those are included in the bid tab, and would recommend that we get the second lowest, which is $300 more than the lowest because of the features, including a couple safety features that I think that it offers that the other one doesn't for that price. The other thing is it has the smallest engine, so it also has the best fuel efficiency. So Jeep's 8 years old, and we expect a normal 8-year cycle for this, so I think fuel efficiency over the course of 8 years is also a contributing factor. So would like to recommend authorization to purchase this as presented.
Questions? Mike?
Yes, Rob, in your memo to the council, you say, down that second paragraph, most of the way down, that it's a V5?
Yes. It's a V5, that's...
Okay. I thought that was a typo.
No, that wasn't, that's a V5, and that's the Ford is a V6. And they also listed the mileage for those 2 units, and it is better with the V5, so that's not a typo, that's what it is. So I don't know, but that's the material I had, so if it's incorrect, it's the material I got from the dealer.
But it's the fuel economy and the...
Well, there's about 4 things.
Recommended is...
It has, probably the key thing for me is that it has side airbags, which is increasingly available, and I think presents a good safety feature. Compared to the Dodge, it has, which the Ford does also have, front disc brakes and a skid plate, which the Dodge doesn't have. It also has a full-size tire, whereas the other 2 are just the compression tires, and that's apparently a promotion that the manufacturer.
That's the spare you're talking about, right?
The spare, yeah.
Okay.
And it was anyhow, color. No, it's not a huge thing, but it is that they have it available. They and Dodge have it available in a comparable color, whereas the Ford is white or a light blue. But the 2 biggest things are the safety features that it has and the fuel efficiency.
Other questions?
Yeah, one other question. I have not heard of this particular, is this a new model?
I'm not a truck guy, but I think it's comparable. I think it's comparable to the Chevy Colorado, but I don't.
With the S10, I guess I'm...
Right. We submitted the bids, and the committee was together, worked with us on that, but was actually Sergeant Brian Gadd that went out and talked with individual dealers, so I just had the information he provided.
Yeah, the Dodge is the largest vehicle inside too, right?
Yes, that's
what you're always after, is more room, that's why I was wondering about it.
normally it is, and for the squad car, that's more a consideration, although the Chevrolet is actually much smaller than the Crown Vic, which we don't buy just because of cost. So we don't always buy the biggest, but size is a consideration. If it wasn't big enough, and this typically isn't going to have all the equipment that a squad car has. We save sales tax on it, so it's substantial. by marking it as emergency vehicle, and there would be time, especially bad weather and that, when we would use it, but by marking it as an emergency vehicle, we don't pay sales tax on it too, so that is savings, but it won't have the in-car videos, and we'll have some room, the catch poles and some stuff that's specific to the CSO.
The CSO, is she the one that drives that, or is that also available for our officers when she's off work?
It's available when she's not working.
Okay.
Typically, it's, except for bad weather, or if we occasionally on the weekends either have larger numbers or some special event, it's usually not driven if it's not in use, but it is available for that use and does occasionally get used.
Other questions?
Well, I noticed it said when available or whatever, any kind of a ballpark guess of when this is going to be?
He had said it was a couple of months, so I'm not entirely, I'm assuming that's probably late August, beginning of September.
Other questions? If not, you have the recommendation from the chief. I'll try to entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the recommendation from, to buy the Canyon, or the GMC extended cab pickup truck from Folens.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion by Charlie, second by Mike. Discussion? Not all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Jane, you have the vote.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Rob, will you stay around for the next consent thing? I got a question for you.
I'll be here for the grants, so.
Agenda item number 5 is the consent agenda. Number of items on the consent agenda, temporary on-sale beer license for the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce for Ag Fest, a application for an exempt permit for Marshall Boys Soccer boosters for a raffle, a fireworks permit for Marshall Community Services, Marshall Fire Department for use at Independence Park on July 4th, special vehicle permit for Ernest Johnson, 2 special vehicle permits for Morningside Heights, and the bills and the project payments, as well as the building permits that have been previously approved by city staff are there for information purposes. Now, any item on the consent agenda, any member of the council wants removed for purposes of separate discussion.
D.
Any other item? If not,
Move approval of all items with the exception of D.
Second.
motion by Mike, seconded by Charlie. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, agenda item number 5D, a special vehicle permit for Ernest Johnson. Mike, you have a question?
Yes, Rob. After applying for this for about 14 times over the years, there was always a restriction on you could only cross state highways. This one says all roads and streets. I don't know if we want a vehicle tooling up and down East College Drive or Main Street.
They're actually specifically barred from this. I guess I thought we were going to
Yeah, I thought
table
this was
this.
pulled, or
So
to be taken off the agenda for further investigation. The request came in late last week to both Rob's office and my office, and you're right, we do have some questions as to the vehicle and its intended purpose.
So the recommendation here is to table.
Yes.
this specific one, because of actually the issues that Mike's talking about, that was something that I had the question to Dennis, and he didn't have time to research it because I brought it to him. And so
What type
that
of
was our question.
Type of a special vehicle is
It's a golf cart.
Oh,
I don't think it's more than a golf.
I don't know that.
I read it's for lawn I think it's for lawn application, so I don't think it's a golf cart.
Oh,
Yeah, and he was indicating that it's equivalent to whatever the Polaris Polaris Ranger is what it's equivalent to. It's an all-terrain vehicle for spraying purposes or something. That's the question we have.
And part of it, there is coming into view with the larger non-ATVs, those are actually becoming street legal, and so part of it became the question as to what type of vehicle it is and how we proceeded, so we just didn't have time to assess
I would
that.
move we table it until the next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Dan to table. Discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 6 from Public Safety Department is to consider the approval of a grant agreement with Minnesota Department of Public Safety for the May seatbelt and child seat mobilization, as well as to consider the approval of the grant agreement with Minnesota Department of Public Safety for the operations of Nightcap Grant Program. Rob, you have both of these? Director of Public Safety, Rob Yance.
Yes, these are grants that are pretty much ongoing with us in terms of our utilization, but it provides us small supplemental funding basically to fund overtime for different aspects of traffic enforcement. So something there's no match, it funds us to do things without, that we either wouldn't do or would go against our general fund budget if we didn't have.
Any member of the council have any questions about either one of these grant agreements?
Rob, how long have you say we've had it for several years. Specifically, how long have we had them? 1 year, 5 years?
Closer to 5 or 6. We've started, because we've actually had a first and second place in the Safe and Sober for the last 3 years, and we had higher awards for that in the previous years. So it's been at least 5 years, but I don't know the specific amount for them.
Other questions?
Well, I guess my only question on both of them is for $1,500, $800, the time filling out the forms and all the paperwork requirements associated with that, of somebody's time, is it really worth it?
We take what we can get, and I know it's not a huge amount, but it's not an overly, that's part you can see in terms of the process. It's just sort of here it is. And so it's less complicated than a lot of grants that we've got to go for. And so it's not, I don't think, overly burdensome. The bulk of it, it's a blending of Tom's office, and then one of our officers, Eric Lincoln, does it, the report completion from our department.
Other questions? Not, I think they're both good programs. I would entertain a motion for approval of both of the grant agreements. Motion by Dan, is there a second? Seconded by Charlie. Discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 7, consider the request of North Star Insurance Companies for a conditional use permit to construct a communication towers 80 foot in height in a B3 General Business District at 202 Jewett Street. This was considered by the Planning Commission at their May 9th meeting, and they recommended its approval. Glenn?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This one, if you remember, had an introduction for a different height tower in, I think it was February of '06. And what they wanted to do is install a 60-foot high tower at that time. And because of the lack of communications, and this serves the Cottonwood, it's a backup system for that, and they need to be able to clear all of the facilities at SMSU. Weren't able to do that, and came back now with a request to extend it the additional 20 feet. We believe that that's a reasonable request, in that they tried to get a tower lower than that, but it didn't do the job. So we would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a question?
Yeah, is that, how tall is that tower that's at the mall?
Oh, gosh. There's some smaller ones. I think there's one for KMHL that's like a 50-foot tower.
It's 80 foot plus, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I think you're referring to the one that the Service Co-op
Yes.
recently installed, and we gave a conditional use
Yeah.
permit for that.
Southwest.
But there's also the tall one by KMHL. It's
Yeah.
a little taller than that. Yeah. So we don't see an issue with it.
Mike?
Well, I was at the planning commission meeting, taking Mr. Doom's place, and it was explained that basically the present one does not serve the needs. And this would actually be 73 feet or something, not the full 80, or would you like to address that?
Yeah, I'm Berlin Shear, and I represent North Star, and yes, Mr. Bodenheimer is correct. We had a conditional use permit for 60 feet, put the tower up. We put up 50 feet of tower is what we did because we had a 3-foot base, 2.5, 3-foot base sticking out of the ground. So we didn't want to exceed the 60 feet, so we put up a 50-foot tower, and then we put a 4-foot dish on top of it. So we were at probably about 55 feet or so. And what we did is we ran it for a year. We found we have intermittent problems. We ran into a couple of buildings at SMSU, one being a dormitory and the other being the RA facility. And we had it diagnosed. Hopefully we're right this time. But they tell us now that 80-foot, bringing the tower up another 20 foot. So actually we would end up at probably about 74, 75 feet. It would not be the full 80 feet because we'll put 20 feet on top of the 50.
Okay. Any questions?
The tower's going to be look like what it is right now, only it's
Yes,
going
it
to be
will.
20 foot higher, just a 20-foot extension put on it?
Yep, be the same tower look. Just there'll be little smaller pieces as we go on.
And the planning commission really had virtually no discussion on it. They saw the logic that it can't do what it's supposed to now, and all voted in favor of the motion.
I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move the conditional use permit for the tower up to 80 feet, as recommended by the planning commission.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Dan. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 8, authorize the submittal of a planning grant application for Blue Cross Blue Shield. We have the information here. Mike, do you have this?
Yeah, I'll take that then. Harry's at the school board meeting tonight. What you have is a request from Harry and Community Services as they work with other different community groups, the YMCA, the Marshall Safety Coalition, and Marshall Community Services to help provide expertise and solutions as they work towards community-wide policy to assist citizens in the pedestrian area, safe access to community facilities, as well as work and educational opportunities. Attached to the back page is an outline of the information and the scope as far as the request for proposals, the scope of what's needed to be done there. And as you take a look at it specifically, the funding is an opportunity that's designed to support communities to prepare, revise comprehensive development, pedestrian or bike plans, and/or in identifying the areas of current ordinances that must be revised to keep consistent with these plans. There is no local match required, and our staff is working with these groups to put together an application by the 1st of June. Mayor, I think this is a group you're involved with.
Well, there's a variety of groups that have been involved in this, including Community Services, but also Marshall Area YMCA and the Community Safety Committee and the Pioneering Healthier Marshall has been involved in all of it. A couple important things here. There's been a lot of cooperation that has gone into this, but also some real efforts not to duplicate efforts that one group may be doing in another, so to take advantage of cooperation between various groups that all really have the same goals. Any questions? Once again, it's a no local match to this, which is another good thing. So I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we allow the appropriate city officials to submit the grant applications for funding and finance.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, seconded by Mike. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 9. 2 items from the Ways and Means Committee, which met earlier this evening. The first would be a resolution providing for the issuance and sale of general obligation utility and improvement bonds, and second, the resolution providing for the issuance and sale of the general obligation equipment certificates. Mike, I'll let you introduce this.
Okay, I'm going to have Finance Director Tom Malabrook, coupled with Terry Heaton from Springstead, are going to cover this portion of the agenda tonight.
Okay, Tom?
Okay, the first bond issue that you made reference to was the general obligation utility improvement bonds. This bond issue consists of two parts, the improvement portion and then the utility portion. The improvement portion is for the Main Street project and includes the improvements of steam, heat, sanitary sewer, street improvements, electrical, water main, and the amenities. The part that's being included under this improvement part is the amount to cover the city cost and the assessment part. The utility portion is for the Tree Street sanitary sewer improvement. Also includes monies in there for storm sewer improvements consisting of the Redwood River riprap, the Mathewitz project, and some storm sewer costs associated with the Main Street project. The other part of the bonding is for the equipment certificates, and these are for those items that were addressed when the budget was put together for 2007, and included in your agenda packet is a list of those pieces of equipment which are listed on 9B-4. The Ways and Means Committee had met earlier, and it was their recommendation to move forward with the resolutions that were being proposed. But before you do that, I'll call upon Terry Heaton from Springstead to make any additional comments.
Welcome, Terry.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, as Mr. Malabrook indicated, there are two bond issues. The $4,390,000 general obligation utility improvement bonds are split into two. The general obligation improvement bonds are for $1,440,000, and the utility portion is $2,950,000. And the reason we've combined them is to save on issuance costs, but each will have a separate schedule with the sources for each, the sources of repayment designated to each bond. The sources for the general obligation utility come from the wastewater and the stormwater utility funds, and the general obligation improvement bonds will be repaid from 25% of that. The debt service will come from assessments, and the remainder will come from the tax levy. Tonight's resolutions are asking for the City Council to approve moving forward with the sale of that bond, along with $485,000 of equipment certificates for the items that Tom mentioned are included also. The time of the sale would be on Monday, June 18th at 11 a.m. with the sale awarded to the low bid at 5:30 that evening. The bonds would have a 10-year term with the opportunity to call those bonds after 8 years. We've selected 8 years at this time. It's contemplated that the assessments will have a 10-year term, and we looked at trying to align the debt service with that, and also the utility portion. We looked at the funds and the ongoing revenues available to pay bonds along with the outstanding debt to date, and determined that 10 years would also be appropriate for the payback. So that's the anticipated term. The certificates would have a 5-year term without a call date. As part of the process, we would look at rating the bonds again in order to get the best interest rates possible. These will get the lowest interest rates because they both have general obligation bonding backing. And in addition, the city's high credit rating of A2 will be used to help market the bonds. These bonds will be issued as bank qualified, meaning in total we anticipate that the city, including the utility, the hospital, and any other entities, will stay within $10 million. And again, that will provide an interest rate advantage in that it has tax exempt components that may interest banks. I think Mr. Mellebrock has indicated what the projects are for. We should note that in addition to looking at the impact on the levy, we've looked at on the utility piece, how that will affect the utility, and to note that their city is required to annually review the budget of the funds to determine whether rates and charges are sufficient and adjust them as necessary on an ongoing basis. Springstead does work with the city to provide that, and at this point, the rates are sufficient, but that we've looked out the next 5-10 years and looks what the rates would be, and this is very, very doable. I'm just going to see if there's anything else worth noting. We're looking at an interest rate in the low 4% for both bond issues. The interest rates have held. We went through the interest rates at the Ways and Means Committee with the graph that I typically hand out, but it shows that at this point we're at the very lowest rates, almost the lowest rates in 2007. And at this point, the rates seem to be level. There's been some employment news and gas prices going up, and that seems to keep the bond market flat. Again, the bonds are selling about a month from now, so we'll see what happens, and we'll bring the charts back and look at that time. The anticipated levy requirement for the improvement bonds are about $130,000 annually, beginning in 2009. The city has already included in its levy for 2007 $70,000, so that's about a $60,000 increase, and then levels out. That seems to be a small increase. And then again, in the case of the equipment certificates, we're anticipating a levy of about $113,000 or something in that range, and we have $111,000 already in the budget. So very close estimating, and that the city has proactively anticipated that in their levies this last fall. And with that, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I'd be happy to answer any questions or that you may have, and I'm not sure if you want to add anything, any comments to that, Mr. Johnson.
We did provide, just to give you a general idea as to the existing debt service tax levies, so for the outstanding issues. Current year 2006 levy payable 2007 is shown in yellow. The items in green are the issues that Terry has just spoken to you about. Those dollar amounts are subject to what the final bond sale amounts would be as far as recalculating final principal and interest payments, but that gives you an idea how that fits into the existing debt service levy.
Any input from the Ways and Means Committee?
Well, as Terry indicated, we met prior to the council meeting at 4:30. The recommendation is to recommend the adoption of those resolutions.
Questions the council has? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move the resolution for the issuance and GO utility improvement bonds. Can we put both of them together? Probably shouldn't.
Let's have separate.
Do they have separate resolutions? We should keep them separate.
For the first one, for the GO utility improvement bonds.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Dan. Discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. And the second resolution, it pertains to the equipment certificates. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we would issue the sale of those bonds for the equipment certificates.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, seconded by Mike. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 10, consider a request from the Chamber of Commerce for the closure of the parking lot. I'll turn to you, Glenn, first, and we also have Tracy Beglin from the Chamber of Commerce with us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, the closure of parking lots was something that we addressed earlier this year concerning the ability of our office to approve some of the street
closure requests that we get. That approval that I give is more for if you want to put a dumpster on the street in front of your property, or if you have a crane that needs to do some work on your property. But in this case, when the request comes in with a significant closure that may affect multiple commercial businesses, we want to make sure that we bring them all to the council. So, if you'll kind of bear with me, in your packet, we're going to talk about the request on page 10-3 first, which is the first promotion that comes prior to your next regular council meeting. And so we don't have time to actually have a hearing for that, but I want to discuss it with you, and if there are any issues, you can ask Tracy as well. So the first one is the Big Dig promotion proposed for May 31st of this year. And the request is, if you look at here's 4th Street, here's 5th Street, this is the main street that's under construction right now, and the proposal is to close off the parking lot behind the pass-throughs area, and the entire lot is indicated. And you can see in the memorandum that I have for you that probably we need some access through the lot. As you know, there are apartments back here, there's business over here, and what we're recommending in our memo to you is that we leave that south entrance open and the ability to also return and block off essentially the north half of the parking lot. Also in our discussions where the request wasn't until 3 p.m. Actually, it's from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. There was a concern that vehicles might be parked there for business purposes when they wanted to start the event. So the recommendation is to do one of two things, and my recommendation is to rope off that area prior to 8 o'clock in the morning, or secondly, if they have a parking lot police, go out there and when the time got closer, kind of cone off every parking stall that became open. Then as it became closer and closer to 3 o'clock, but that does take a lot of time and effort by someone to do that. And then if somebody doesn't come out, if they left their car there for some time, it's right in the middle of your closed area that you want to have a kind of a fun event. So our recommendation is that you allow the closure approximately half of it, and then close it off earlier for the to keep people out. Tracy, any comments on that one? Please.
That's basically the request. We discussed this with Glenn, and we concur with his recommendations that would be very workable for what we're planning.
And we would assume that the adjacent businesses are knowledgeable and supportive of this?
At this point, we've not contacted every individual business. We've contacted the majority and heard no issues today.
And we would like them to do that as well. Contact every business with a letter or something that indicates what their promotion is and when it's happening. And once the approval is granted, kind of the timing for the closure. If it's, we can assist if it's before the 8 o'clock time.
Questions for Glenn and or Tracy?
I got a question, I guess. You know, you're talking about closing off the north end, so that's the half towards the buildings?
Correct.
And so at 3 o'clock, if I want to go to Pat's Hardware Hank to pick up supplies to do something, I'm going to get there by...
You would need to park in this area or across the street and then walk across
Through
the
the
area
event area?
that's being utilized for that. Excuse me?
Through the event area.
Yeah, through the event area.
Tracy, maybe for the benefit of the council, could you explain what you're looking at doing as part of this promotion?
Sure. What we're planning on doing is trying to generate some excitement and enthusiasm. Obviously, there are some challenges presented by the current parking lot issues, the access in and out, as well as the construction on Main Street. So what we're going to do is have an event aimed at families, sponsored by Wells Fargo Bank, that will include bringing in a dump load of sand, and the kids will be able to dig for coins or more likely tokens that can be exchanged for coins because it's a bit safer to do that. We'll have the KMHL Coke event with music, so free Coke, and you can start gathering your summer event tickets, which is a big draw. We'll have free hot dogs, ice cream. The Wells Fargo Bank will be giving away $10 savings accounts for children. That's totally free. You can go in and cash it in, get you $10 the next day if that is your choice. So we think we've put together kind of a great variety of different events. You asked about Patzers. Lyle is on the planning committee, and he is wildly enthusiastic about this. He thinks it's going to be a great event.
Mike, question?
I guess my concern is with the limited parking downtown is if we're not meeting until 3 in the afternoon, I hate to close it at 8 a.m. Can't we get some sandwich things or whatever you want to call them, signs at the entrances to say this lot will close at 1 p.m.? Or all cars must be gone by 1, so at least the businesses have a half a day of access to that space.
In theory, we'd be happy to do that, but based on past experience with Sounds of Summer, according to your ordinance, it takes 4 hours from the time that a car owner is notified to actually have the ability to have it removed from the space. So the reality is that if we go that route, we're more than likely going to have an event around cars that have been left there. Very difficult to actually implement that.
Just a thought.
Other questions?
Same concern we had.
Well, once again, this is for one, it's a one-day event. I think it's, certainly there's been work that's gone into seeing if this promotion will be effective. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike. Discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. And then the second.
The second request is the larger promotion that they have, and that's the Crazy Day promotion, scheduled right now for July 19th. And this one involves actually both parking lots in the parking areas adjacent to all the buildings. So the alley areas and the first set of parking spaces, I'll call it south of the alley. And that's all the way down the line. So this one, being there is some time, I thought it might be good to have that notification out, require the chamber to send notices to all of the adjacent property owners, and actually have a hearing on this Crazy Days request. Yeah, I think what they'll do is they'll flush out any real concerns that anyone might have with deliveries. The other recommendation that we have is that they notify all the adjacent properties that if they have a large truck delivery during that day, that they take care of it either the day before or prior or after the closure times. And the reason for that is the system is designed for the truck traffic to come up here and then turn around in this large turn area. And we do not have enough space to turn it around and come back in the second row of traffic. So that would be the reason that we wouldn't want any large semi-traffic type things wanting to make a delivery during that period of time.
So the recommendation is to call for a public hearing, I guess.
Yes, Mike.
I think, Glenn, the question, if you close off that drive lane and the first line of parking that's immediately adjacent to the buildings, how with that center line being two-way, how do you get back out of that?
Yes, the center is two-way. This is one way going this direction, this is center lane, and then this one is one way going that way. So it does allow in and out for all of the traffic.
I think Mike is saying if you go in the center one, how do you
Yes,
get out
you
of the
can
center?
continue in the center one all the way out.
You have to go clear up the end and turn around.
Correct. Yes. Yes, it's difficult, but
it's one of those things that's how we have to deal with that lot if we want to block off any of it. And then also in the discussions, of course, should be, remember the parking lot over here. Remember that lot. Another comment we have ordered half a dozen more directional parking signs for Saratoga Street to kind of direct traffic down to this area for parking. That's something too that's maybe been a little bit lacking, so that people, if they want to come down here, and it does say street closed ahead 250 feet to indicate that we do have public parking still open in this neighborhood. And we'd like to keep as much open as possible, even during the Crazy Days promotions. This is the area that they thought would be adequate for blocking off for their promotional event. So we would recommend a hearing for this.
And there's no closure on the other side of Main Street?
Yes. Oh, on the other side of Main? No.
Not at this point.
Okay.
We discussed the possibility of utilizing 3rd Street, but at this point, construction plans on 3rd just haven't been solid enough for us to be able to need to request that. I think we've got enough time to do so if that would become a necessity.
Okay, is there a motion to call for a public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike. Discussion? Not all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 11, consider the authorization to advertise for bids for the 2007 overlay project. Once again, Glenn.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You see, this is our annual appropriation for overlays, and we have designated those, so we have kind of a spreadsheet that's kind of small, but I think you can read it. And these are the areas, then the areas in red are those areas we plan on overlaying, and then we have alternate locations in case that the bids come in better than we anticipate, and we have some alternate. You'll notice that there are a couple of cul-de-sacs that were on last year's list and are not on this list again. And the reason for those cul-de-sacs not being on there is there are significant base problems and drainage problems. And we've decided that in those locations, they will not be receiving just a mill and overlay because they would break up again almost immediately. So those cul-de-sac projects that you might be looking for on this list will be coming forward as 429 special assessment projects next year. We'll have to put together the projects this fall, and we have taken them specifically off our list for mill and overlay.
Does that include the Morningside Circle?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does. We've had some petitions in for improvements on those projects, and that's the way we have decided now to address those rather than as a mill and overlay that we do not believe will work.
Mayor, one of the things that might be helpful that augments, I think, what Glenn is recommending is that you've been here now for about 6 years, going on 7 years?
It's 6.
6.
Yep.
Could you just briefly talk about, as you look at where you're having to come back in weigh asphalt overlays versus street construction, what you're starting to find from a historical perspective with some of the conditions of our subbase around the community?
I'll give you a prime example is in our Tree Streets project area, in Box Elder and the adjacent streets next to it. We find 4+ feet of black dirt that the street is built over with 6 inches of gravel and 1.5 inches of asphalt. And it's just marvelous that they've lasted how they have, and they're completely they're shot. But they should be after 15, 20 years of use in that type of environment. And so we don't want to perpetuate that by milling off that 1.5 inches and putting 1.5 inches of mix back over that organic material. So before we do a project, we try to do some soil, some borings, actually finding out how much asphalt and gravel, and then what's underneath it. Marshall is kind of a unique location, like every community is, in that some of the streets are built on clay.
Some of them have a good base to them. But many of the ones that you find deteriorated, many of those were a quick and inexpensive method to start with that lasted some time. And now it's time to not replace them in that fashion again. We have some pumps that have been discharging, for instance, into the circles, and when you have thin and cracked pavement, then that water, instead of going down the street to the storm sewer, goes into the subgrade, and then that either pumps or freeze-thaw cycle. And so that's why you see a lot of the curb areas being deteriorated first. Also, of course, Dan's primarily aware of this too, the heavy truck traffic, the sanitation collection trucks are probably and the buses are probably the hardest traffic they'll get. After the construction traffic, the concrete trucks and the gravel trucks and the trucks unloading trusses. I could go on and on, but that's kind of typical where you see deteriorated areas that really we have better plans, specifications, and inspections than maybe existed before. Different specifications, I'm sure. So that's why you don't see some of them, but these we believe are eligible for a mill and overlay that would last. So we are recommending those with those alternates.
Okay, any questions for Glenn? Glenn, when are the bids expected to be advertised and received?
We'll have to have 3 weeks of notification, so I don't have the date on here. I expect it's going to be the second meeting in June. Second meeting in June, the 18th, I believe that is.
Would that still coincide with major work going on in the area, including the airport?
No problem.
Okay.
And with South Saratoga Street as well.
Any other questions for Glenn? If not, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Mike to authorize the advertisement for bids for the resurfacing of the streets. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 12, project Y22, the South 8th Street Storm Sewer Improvement Project. Action here would be to consider the resolution receiving the report and calling for a hearing on the improvement. Glenn.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This project was initiated by adjacent property owners along South 8th Street, just south of West Main Street in the Burlington Northern Tract. There has been some additional new construction in this area and a new property owner that has a significant amount of traffic to its facility as well. The dark line that we show here is the approximate area of the stormwater runoff area. That's the area that we have to design the stormwater system around. And it's not a very large area. It's only about 4 acres, I believe, in size. And the improvement request is to take care of the stormwater that comes on South 8th Street and currently flows between these two buildings to this property and then kitty corner across to this existing inlet location, and then a storm sewer proceeding southwesterly from that point. We have got an estimated cost of that project of just over $31,000 for that improvement, and we'd like to set the public hearing for June 4th. We'll be notifying all of the adjacent property owners of the cost of the project. Generally, we do not have individual individual assessment costs in that notification. It's just a hearing of what's to be done, the total contract, or the total estimated amount of the improvement. But I will say that the intent would be is to assess the project by the square foot. That's according to our our current special assessment policy, and as it is a new installation, it would be borne by the adjacent property owners. So we're recommending the call for the public hearing on the June 4th, 2007.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Questions for Glenn? Mike?
Mayor, one point Glenn didn't address, as you take a look at the Section 3 Statement of Probable Cost, is there are no easements or real estate costs identified for this, and so in order to do this project, because we do not have easements, it would be indicative upon the adjacent property owners to provide easements to allow this construction to occur. If that's not done, then we would be left with the choice of having to condemn an easement if the council so ordered us to do that. But there is not anything included dollar-wise for obtaining those easements if it's desired by that area, drainage area.
Any other questions?
Glenn, could you show us where that drainage is going to go to? Where the pipe is going to go?
Yeah, the pipe, there's a couple different scenarios. We haven't decided on the alignment, but the existing street drains to this. This is essentially the low spot, and then drains between these and then around to this point. So the obvious first solution is to put in catch basins right here, extend the pipe through this opening, and then either follow the property line, or in the case where the property owner said, well, you can just go across here and tie in. But we need to identify all of that and verify that. The other alternative is to put those catch basins in still at the low spot, take the storm sewer down this way, and then connect along the property line. You can still, it's the same elevation difference, just takes a different route to get there. So those are really the only two alternatives for taking care of any underground storm sewer system.
Other questions? If not, the recommendation is to receive the report and call for a public hearing that will be held on June 4th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, seconded by Dan. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 13, project Y23, the Redwood River Riprap Project. Consider the resolution approving the plans and specifications. Glenn.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This one too, as the memo indicates, was started back in 2004 and was put on hold until we could find some additional funding. We're still working on some of the portions of additional funding, and that's why you don't have the call for bids at this time yet. But these are the three areas of the riprap project areas for the stabilization of Redwood River. And if you remember, the city has some of the responsibilities of operation and maintenance of the Redwood River from Wayside Rest to Cottonwood, Green Valley area, except for certain portions that are under DNR's jurisdiction. So in this case, this is the North Bruce Street part that we have severe erosion along this inside bend of the river, right here. And these two locations, one down by the Adult Community Center and one in the downtown park area. So those are the three independent and distinct sections. Total project cost of all three is about $260,000. The North Bruce Street portion of the project was about $110,000, of which we have about $25,000 in DNR funding, or the funding from the RCA. So the other project funding, once the plans and specs are approved, we will now solicit funding from the other adjacent property owners. We didn't want to go forward with it as a 429 or a special assessment project. We want to go forward with it as an agreement type project with the adjacent property owners. So what we're looking for tonight is just the approval of the plans for those three areas for us to come forward at a later date with the actual call for bids.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Questions for Glenn? the downtown project also coordinates with the fireman's 9/11 planning also.
Yes, one comment on that is if we're going to do work in the downtown park area, the first thing that needs to be done is the removal of that failed retaining wall. It supports the resloping of the riverbank and the riprapping, rather than waiting until that project would come forward, do the project, and then having to haul everything over the finished improvement from either side of the river. So it's going to be kind of a staged construction, and this one, it's ready for improvement. We'll call it that.
Other questions for Charlie?
That improvement that you got that's going to be at the downtown park, how much of the one side are you going to do the whole one side? All the way down to where it is, both sides?
Both sides. There's actually a riprap located down by the discharge of the Tiger Lake Pond. There's also a small piece of existing new riprap where we did the storm sewer just behind the bathroom area. We're going to tie into both of those areas. Those areas won't be disturbed again. So that actually was put in with a future thought that the rest of it would be done. So that is, we'll tie into that. Same type of rock too. We're going to try to use the river rock rather than the angular granite quarry rock that we sometimes use. That's maybe better for the dissipation of energy in the river, but this works as well and matches in with the landscape.
And on the other side, as you go back up towards MMU, it's going to be both sides of the river there too?
Yes.
And it's going to go up around the corner to how far?
Well, there's the existing piece of riprap that's been placed, I'll say several years ago. I don't know if you were here, Mike, but several years ago. We're going to tie into that. We are going to do some gabion installation in some of the locations where we have real steep slopes, which is the mesh, I call it the chicken wire mesh filled with rocks. So yes, we intend to do all the section along both sides that hasn't been done before. And that's what we're talking about, is needing some agreements with MMU, maybe with Schwann's, who now is the current owner of the other side, which they weren't when we put this project together in '04. We've already made initial contacts with them as well about the need and participation.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the plans?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Charlie. Discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 14, two items from the Legislative Ordinance Committee. The first would be the section of the Marshall City Code of Ordinances amending the time period for issuance of a temporary 3.2% malt liquor license. And then the second item is the section of the Marshall City Code of Ordinances adding an additional requirement for the application of retail liquor licenses. Dennis, do you have this?
Either myself or these requests came through City Clerk, Mr. Mellebrook. The first, the 3.2 malt liquor license extension. Right now, we grant a maximum of 4 months temporary license. The request has come through to extend that up to 6 months on a temporary license. Legislative and Ordinance Committee reviewed it, thought that it was appropriate. It is not anticipated that there would be any additional fee charged for extending those additional 2 months. So the ordinance to extend has been prepared, and would be the recommendation to introduce that ordinance. Secondly, then the second one addresses requirement that applicants for liquor license be current with real estate taxes and special assessments on their property at the time of application. And a requirement that was previously codified but then was eliminated at some point, and we're just trying to reintroduce or put it back into the ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Tom, you have any comments? Any input from the Legislative and Ordinance Committee?
Well, the reason for they asked for an extension. If we were to follow what we had for 6 months at $50, it would cost more than an annual license, which seemed a little bit ridiculous, and because the fee is set by resolution, which we can change each year, in essence, the current says $200, or up to $200, or wording to that effect.
$50 a month.
Maximum of 200.
Maximum
Yep.
of 200. So the recommendation from the LNO is to approve this one.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the council? If not, I think we could handle the introduction of these, both of these as one motion.
Correct.
Okay, and I would make that motion for both of them.
Motion by Mike, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mike to introduce both of these recommendations from the Legislative Ordinance Committee. Discussion on the motion.
Well, just one comment, that 2 says an additional requirement, it's really not, it used to be in there, it just got left out in the ratification. So it's really not an additional, putting back in what was left out.
Save a few words by just saying additional. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion passes. Agenda item number 15, Councilmember Commission Board Liaison Reports. The EDA met, continues to do a variety of work, including the Parkway Housing Addition, and there was an election of officers. The outgoing member who wasn't eligible for reappointment, Stan Finnis, had completed his last year of his final term as the chairperson, and Dave Edens was elected as the new chairperson of the EDA. The other two have not met since our last meeting. Mike?
Yes, you have copies of the Airport Commission meeting in your packet from May 14th. Lyon County Enterprise will be meeting next week. You have the minutes of the Merit minutes included in your packet. And the Prairie Net Consortium met with a joint meeting with it was my first meeting, but I think it was a joint meeting with the Global Positioning Ad Hoc Committee or whatever it is.
But no, those were all the member representatives along with the appropriate staff.
But I mean the global positioning people, that, I don't know if that's an ad hoc committee or what, but anyway, it was a joint meeting.
It's a subcommittee of staff from different entities trying to work on pulling together all of our GPS stuff.
They found their way there?
Yep. So I would assume the minutes will be in our next packet. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Jenny?
Human Rights meets on this coming Monday, and I was unable to meet with the Visitor Bureau.
Okay. And Mike?
Utilities Commission met last week. They welcomed Mark Mallinging and Stan Finnestad to replace Dan Bond, who left after 10 years on the Utilities Commission, and Steve Strauss, who had resigned simply because he just didn't have enough time to accept, even though he was just recently appointed to that commission. I don't have my agenda, so I can't remember the names of the two students that won the awards, the scholarship awards, but that'll be in the minutes when they're probably in the next packet. The hospital board met tonight. They formally welcomed Marianne as the new CEO. They also, we also met over at the new thrift store that's moved over near the Hy-Vee, and in fact, they were having their business after hours there tonight as well. That's why I apologize for being a few minutes late, because our meeting ran late and it ran into that. Personnel Committee, Councilmember Ritter and myself met with the some city employees last week for our joint meeting, which we used to schedule quarterly, but haven't met since 2005, I believe it was. Councilman Sano also attended that meeting since Larry wasn't available to attend that meeting. They presented some concerns on the new pay plan, and we need to schedule a personnel committee to review some of those things. So we need to schedule that if possible after and Councilman Sanos also volunteered to sit on that committee until Larry can return if so chooses to do so.
Yep, and thank you, Charlie, for that. Anything else, Mike?
That's it.
Okay. Dan?
I had Housing Commission and PIT met last week or the week before on land transfer for the library with library board members, school board members and stuff. So,
Okay. And Charlie?
I was have a meeting for Larry at the Adult Community Center, and they canceled that till next month. So there's nothing to report from that. The Cable Commission meeting I couldn't make because I had a meeting for Public Improvement Transportation that day at the same time. Marshall and Larry at Transit, we went to the meeting and there was, they're moving ahead with the bus garage. It's getting closer to getting started. And they also had a program they could apply for, they're going to apply for, which is going to put up some designated routes where they could give lower funding for people that would be in a designated route area. And in that funding, they also supply a bus for free that has no out-of-pocket cost to the city or the county. And it's a one-year program. So at the end of that year, if they would get the grant, they'd be able to keep the bus at no cost. So they were going forward with making that grant application, hoping that we'd get that.
Okay. Very good. Move on then to council member individual items. Jenny?
No, nothing.
Charlie?
None.
Dan?
yeah, I've just one, I was contacted by, actually, it was two people, but it's family, so it's a couple, on the baseball fields at Independence Park, and over the tops of the grandstands, which are back-to-back. In the past, we've always had netting up for fall balls coming flying over, hitting people, and they're just wondering when those would be put up.
Mike, you can follow up on that. Okay. Anything else, Dan?
No, that's it.
Mike?
Yeah, it's two items. We've been talking about this for a long time, but I guess I would like to have a motion to see that the Public Transportation and Improvement Committee, the next time they meet, whenever that is, come up with renaming our parking lots so that by the time we get Main Street done and everything, we have several parking lots with a name instead of the P lot, the Q lot, whatever. We've been talking about it for years. I'd like to see that on your agenda next time.
Okay. Glenn, you can be sure that gets on the agenda, and other council members perhaps would have some suggestions of a procedure or process to solicit appropriate suggestions for names.
And the second thing, with the downtown construction, I've been a little bit amazed at the availability of parking in the parking lot, so I drove over in curiosity at 10:30 in the morning over to the plot that you made over here at the old middle school. It was very nice to see that. I counted 65 cars in there, and I'm assuming the vast majority of those are employees of downtown businesses. That's why we do have parking availability downtown. Let's hope the trend continues. That was a very good move. That's it.
Mike? The one item that I would have, and I'd echo your comments about the cooperation of everyone in the downtown project. Certainly, it's a large project, it's going to be a long project, and it's the cooperation so far has been good, and I think all the comments about the work going on so far has all been positive. It's the action every day, and it seems to be progressing very, very well. It was mentioned earlier about the downtown park, the 9/11 Firemen's Monument and Memorial that is in the planning stages right now. Yesterday at the event at SMSU that was the honoring the servicemen, there's a very nice event and a number of very nice presentations, and one of those presentations was Chief Mark Claith, who gave a very nice overview of the purpose of what is envisioned in the downtown park. And I think in an upcoming meeting, it would be good to have that discussion also with with the council, because he did just a wonderful job of explaining it in front of a stadium full of people. So commend Mark on doing that. Let's move on then to agenda item number 17, review of pending agenda items. Any questions about those?
Mayor, I think you led right into that one, is that we've identified if the council would allow or would agree on June 4th, if we could get you to come an hour earlier, is that we bring in the Community Service Board to talk about the downtown park and some long-term aquatic center improvements, and just try to use that as just a meet and discuss and take a look at what they're contemplating in those areas. No council action necessary, but just kind of an informal session on that, if you want to put that on your calendar for June 4th at 4:30.
Is that okay with people's schedules?
I'll get whatever materials I can out ahead of time with that, but so you've got some background, but they just want to kind of meet and begin the dialogue and the discussion on what they'd like to do with those.
Okay. And then the audit presentation, it looks like most people would prefer to meet on June 18th prior to the city council meeting. Is that still okay with everybody? So we'll set that date then, Tom, for the audit presentation. If that allows adequate time for the presentation. I mean, if the auditor says, you know, I need more than 50 minutes to do the presentation, then we should go a bit earlier.
Yeah, we talked 4 o'clock.
Okay.
I can't remember an audit session from more than 90 minutes.
I assume we'll have the audits ahead of time.
Tom?
No, not all.
Okay. Is there anything else to come forward from the council? Glenn, do you have anything more?
No.
Tom? Dennis? No. Mike?
One item that you probably saw in the editorial today, there's some comments in regards to the downtown project and parking and construction issues and questions that I've asked Glenn, and assuming the radio station will accommodate me on Thursday, which is part of our normal radio program. We're going to try to talk about some of the construction unknowns that answer why the contractor does certain things, why does a project proceed like it is. We're going to try to address some of those things that were in the newspaper editorial today and do our best to provide some education.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mike, second by Charlie to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, we're adjourned.